Good evening. Welcome to our meeting of Council and Committee of the Whole for November 5th. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil pour le 5 novembre. We will open the meeting this evening with the land acknowledgement by Councillor St.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Je souhaite prendre un moment pour signaler l'importance du territoire sur lequel nous sommes rassemblés. The municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe people on the traditional territory of Nipissing, Temagami, and Okies First Nation, covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contribution in shaping and strengthening our communities. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones locaux et de leur culture.
Merci. Next, any declarations of pecuniary interest for this evening's meeting? Councillor Nicol?
Section 5.1.1.
Okay, thank you. And you filed the appropriate papers with the clerk? Thank you very much. Any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to approve the addendum. An addendum was sent to your email this afternoon with a paper copy on your desk.
It is moved by Councillor Gagné and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the addendum for the meeting of Council and Committee of the Whole on November the 5th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held on November the 5th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to section 4, which is our delegations and petitions. We do have a delegation this evening from the board of the 2019 International Plowing Match. I'd like to welcome to our council chambers Mr. Neil Fox and Mr. Dan Olivier, who were the chair and co-chair of the IPM committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council. Dan, I appreciate your invitation here to your gathering. We're always honored to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here. See some familiar faces. Always enjoy coming and sharing some of our wonderful news with you. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, this guy over here, Monsieur Olivier, decided to invite more than 81,000 people to his farm in our municipality. At that time, the municipality hosted the 2019 International Plowing Match at Rural Exposition. This was an idea that was executed after several years of meticulous planning. Tonight, we are here to say thank you. We're here to say thanks to you and to all of the wonderful people in this community who made it their IPM. We are here to acknowledge FedNor, our federal government partner who invested significantly in the success of our project. We are here to acknowledge the province, the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation recognized the merits of our project and partnered with our community. On September 17, 2019, we hosted most of the members of the Legislative Assembly for our parade and opening ceremonies. The Premier of Ontario came to celebrate with us in our community. We are here to say thank you to the private sector, the driving force of this local economy. They continually answer the bell when asked for community support. A couple of those highlights, if I may, are platinum sponsors Ed Seguin and Sons, gold partners Le Coop Régional, Collège Boréal, Home Hardware, Savage Ford, Tremblay Chevrolet, Twigs Coffee Roasters, West Nipissing Sanitation, Baker Tilly, and Le Journal Le Voyageur. We have silver sponsors Sturgeon Falls Brush and Contracting, and bronze partners and friends of the match, ASM Auto Sports and Marine, RL Equipment, La Vie en Couleur, and Leisure Farms. These businesses and many others do so much for this community. We would never be able to appropriately express our gratitude for all that you do in this and for this community. We are here to say thank you to the board of directors who steered and managed the execution of this colossus. Daniel Olivier, Jean Beauchemin, Thomas Lambert, Javette Morin, Brian Vancourt, Danielle Michel, Amy Shopman, Joanne Savage, Stéphane Poulain, Elisa Craddock, Ariane Bouliette, and Cynthia Guindon. This team was comprised of wonderful human beings whose passion for our community and culture is only outweighed by their intellectual agility and commitment to excellence. They helped to create memories. Much time has passed as they navigated a pandemic, litigation, their professions, and their families, but it would be inappropriate to focus on the clock rather than the success. Excuse me for a second. More than 1,300 people volunteered their time, energy, and passion to showcase our community. Unravaged by hysterical partisan impulses, indifferent to the hourly sensations of the Twitters, Instas, and Facebook feeds, they rallied behind the cause and showed that we live in the greatest community in the world. It was a display of community pride that we should strive to recreate at every opportunity, and I hope will act on the opportunity that still exists to recognize their efforts. Most importantly, congratulations and thank you to you, the municipality of West Nipissing. This event was your gift to the region. It was your opportunity to highlight the importance and vibrancy of the agricultural sector to all of us. It was the opportunity to pound our chests and tell the world that we can accomplish anything we set our mind to. Success points directly to the leadership team of Jay, Elisa, and Stéphane. Un gros merci. The economic spinoff for our region was more than $4.6 million. Your foresight into this opportunity is the reason we are celebrating this evening. The event under your leadership had a net profit of more than $400,000, split evenly with our partner, the Ontario Ploughman Association. On behalf of the municipality of St. Charles, French River, Marks Day Warren, and Nipissing First Nation, thank you for sharing the harvest. Each community has received $25,000 as their share of the bounty. So I am pleased, and the main reason I'm here this evening is to present Mayor and Council this evening with a copy of our audited financial statements, and most importantly, with a check in the amount of $101,042.72. We know and trust that you will invest these profits in a tangible asset that reflect the culture and spirit of our event. Thank you very much. Online, Madam Mayor?
First. Oh, thank you so much.
Problem?
Thank you, Mr. Olivier. Thank you very much, Mr. Fox, for being here and sharing the results of this very important event in our community. Thank you, Mr. Olivier, for being here, and again for opening up your space to the entire province to come see what we have to offer here in West Nipissing. I will open the floor now for questions or comments from our members of council, if that's okay with you, Mr. Fox. Councillor Resto.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Fox, for your presentation. I know my previous political life, when I was here, we were involved with working with the group and putting on getting things in place to put on a successful event. And it's great to see that things went through well as they did. I appreciate the update. I know there's questions within the community in terms of what happened and what transpired following that, and I appreciate the information that's been shared tonight, and it provides some clarity in terms of how the financial benefits were supported. And it's great to see that even though it was hosted within West Nipissing, that it was a regional effort, and that those partners were also recognized for their contributions here. And I always am certain to share the comments that I appreciate the hard work that yourself and the committee and all of our municipal staff put into this, as well as the other volunteers who took part. It certainly was a humongous event, and I was able to attend a couple of the days there, and just amazing to see such a well put together event take place in our little municipality here. And you guys all did a great job, and I appreciate your presentation tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Restool.
Okay, Councillor Larrabee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Fox, for this presentation. I do remember very well that the event was scheduled for 2020 and then got changed to 2019. And so there was a big push toward the staff, municipality to pull together and put this through, and did. And luckily, 2020, we were under COVID, so we just, so that was a good move. So I thank you for all your effort, and to the municipality, to the staff, for all the effort that they did. It was a great success, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, with that, I will thank you again. Again, and I will reiterate what Councillor Restool said. Something like this doesn't happen without kind of support, cooperation, and teamwork of all kinds of partners, whether it's public sector funders, the private sector businesses that step up as sponsors and help put it on, all the exhibitors, the people who participated in the different events, the plowing events, the volunteers that manned the gates and moved the hay bales and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really incredible to see that municipality of our size with our regional partners were able to put on an event of such a great caliber and hosted so many people from across the province. So again, thank you to all of you for your work on the event.
Thank you very much. Fair enough. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Okay, good night, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 4.2. Can I do these together? Can I receive all the petitions together? We'll move on to item 4.2. So in your package, there is a petition that's been received in regards to installation of the sidewalk on Courseul from John to Front Street. As per procedural bylaw, council receives that petition this evening and it will be discussed at our next meeting. Moving on to item 4.3, an additional petition received in regards to the sale of Scouts Island. Council will receive that petition and that item will be discussed at our next meeting of council. And item 4.4, a petition for the installation of streetlights at the corner of Marlowe and Nipissing Street. As per procedural bylaw, council hereby receives the petition and we'll discuss the item at our next meeting of council. Okay, thank you. Moving on to committee of the whole, item 5.1, we have an item under emergency measures and public safety, and I will pass the floor to our chair, Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, but Councillor Larrabee is now the chair for the emergency.
Sorry. My apologies, we'll redo that one. Yeah, we did do a shuffle last time. My apologies. Councillor Larrabee, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Floor. We have one item on the agenda. This is 5.1.1. The fire master plan and risk assessment was done by Bear Consulting Inc. And it was the representative of Tim Beckett and Isaac Commandant. And with this, I'll pass it on to our chief, fire chief, and to make the introduction of who's who. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your worship and members of council, we took on the project of the risk assessment, which was mandated to be done, community risk assessment was mandated to be done by June 26th, correct? July 26th.
Well, July 1st of 2024.
Yeah. So we went through the process. Bear Consultant was the successful applicant. With that, we've had his team of Isaac Commandant, Tim Beckett. Tim Beckett's here tonight to present. Isaac is joining us via Zoom. With that, I will pass it over to Mr. Beckett to present and Mr. Commandant to present the findings in the report for council's information.
Thank you, Chief, and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Truly is a pleasure to be here today. My name is Tim Beckett. I'm a senior consultant with Bear Integrated Solutions. We have an office in Kitchener, Ontario. We do this type of work, master planning, community risk assessment right across the country. Online with us is Isaac Commandante. Isaac is the Executive VP of Bear Integrated Solutions and was also the project manager for this project here. He joins us from Calgary, where we have a Calgary office as well. So I was the fortunate one that got to come up and join you again in your beautiful community. So we spent the last 10 months working with your team in fire, and especially with the chief. And I need to commend West Nipissing for reaching out and putting. Not every fire department has a master plan. Every fire department should, but not every fire department has a master plan. And the chief identified a need. Put your department under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of eyes on it, and that takes a lot of nerve to be able to go through that. Our goal was really to examine all aspects of your fire department and your community, and develop a 7-year master plan and a community risk assessment, as the chief identified, that was responsible to the province for July 1st of 2024. I do have a presentation. Is it up on screen? Thank you. So we'll move to slide 3. If I could. Next slide. There we go. So throughout the project, we utilized the next slide over. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, my clicker's not working correctly.
That's okay. Anyways, we utilized throughout the project a methodology that examines everything through the 3 lines of defense. And those 3 lines of defense is public education, fire prevention and code enforcement, and emergency response. And the 3 work very well together. We had a number of objectives that we focused on that included looking at enhancing firefighter safety throughout the project, looking at improved cost control and containment within the service. We looked at increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of the department, and identifying the right-sized service to meet the current and the future needs of the community. And this was all geared towards improving operational efficiency and effectiveness of the West Nipissing Fire and Emergency Services. This was not about growing and throwing a lot of money at the fire department, but really looking at the fire department as a whole, just to ensure that you're effective and efficient, and making sure that where we could, we provided recommendations that was cost containment, cost improvements, and there was some cost increases as part of our overall recommendations. So as the chief talked about, community risk assessment under Ontario Regulation 378/18 requires, sorry, I'm on slide 5 now, just to get caught up. There we are. Looking at the community from a risk perspective. All municipalities are required to have one. So by completing the CRA, you are now in compliance with this Ontario regulation. And really, it was to look at the community risk assessment, and then as I talked about, all the efficiencies and effectiveness of the service. Next slide. Through our process, we use a roadmap for the development of the community risk assessment as your foundation document, looking at risk within the community to build on what the fire service needs in order to manage that risk mitigation strategies, and that would assist us in the development of our observations and then recommendations. So we go through this cycle here. As you can see, the arrows start out at one end, and they end up back to the start again. And what we do is we highly recommend that this plan be reviewed on an annual basis, looking at changes, looking at areas that might have developed differently than predicted. And then, at the end of the master plan, develop a new master plan for the future of the organization. Next slide. Through this, we looked at historical events, response data. We looked at the whole aspect of the evaluation of their fire and rescue risks, looking at probability and consequences for emergency event types. We did the probability, looking at, what is the probability of an event occurring, and the consequences is if it does occur, what's going to happen within that within the community. We use 9 unique profiles to develop this CRA. I won't go through and read them all, but a very in-depth process, looking at everything from your geography to your building stock to your demographics. Next slide, please. Went in and looked at your hazard profiles, your economic profile to see what impacts emergencies could have on your economy, and of course your past loss and event history profile. Through that review, we've identified a number of risks, high and medium risks that were identified throughout, and then these are just some samplings of what we came across. Approximately 195 emergency calls between 2018 and 2022 were motor vehicle accidents. And this represents 91% of all your rescue calls and 21% of all calls responded to by the emergency services during that time. So you have a lot of car accidents. You have a lot of need for that type of risk that you're dealing with. You have the Ottawa Valley Railway tracks that run along Highway 17 and right through the municipality. Your Group C residential occupancies account for 84.86% of all your occupancies. We know that through history in the province, that the majority of structure fires, the majority of fire deaths, and the majority of fire injuries occur in residential fires. So that becomes a concern and a risk for your fire service to look at, maybe not in terms of fighting fires differently in those, but how do you start to prevent and through public education and code enforcement. Next slide. You have 12 registered vulnerable occupancies and 7 community living spaces within the municipality. Vulnerable occupancies obviously lead to different challenges for the fire department to deal with. There are several properties within West Nipissing that have potential high fuel loads, and those were all identified throughout the document. Age 65 and older represents 26.41% of the total population, and that's higher than the provincial average. And to go along with that, 18.48% are what we call pre-seniors. Pre-seniors are 55 to 65, and with everybody living longer nowadays in their own homes, those pre-seniors will just add to the senior population and eventually increase that even greater for you, which puts a bigger challenge on, again, fire prevention, public education, and not only that, rescue needs when they have to respond to an incident. You also have a higher population of Indigenous people within the community. Studies at the provincial level done by the coroner's office just recently indicate that the Indigenous population is likely to be more impacted by fires, which increases the potential risk to the community as well. So something that you can gear your public education, fire prevention programming towards dealing with that. Small communities, you have a number of small communities that are right in the depth of your forest, and you got potential for forest fires. And then we've identified a number of different causes of fires and all that can be used to help target public education messaging based on the types of causes and ignition sources. Next slide. So our process took us to the community, a tour of the community. We toured each one of the fire stations, had an opportunity to look at what your response demographics look like, and as well as what the condition your fire stations were in. We did targeted interviews with a number of senior staff and fire staff, and we also did an online firefighter survey, which really allowed input from the rest of the fire staff. We conducted a municipal comparative analysis that really looked at identifying a peer review and comparison to what other municipalities are doing. Next slide. Through that, we came up with 21 observations and 29 key recommendations. We have a time frame that's been assigned to each of the recommendations, and I don't mean like, by January 1st of 2025 you should have this, but we put a range of 12 to 24, 24 to 48 months, just to give the chief a sense of a guideline on where he could go when he develops a strategic planning on this. Really, the progress of the implementation of the recommendations should be monitored and potentially adjusted. We also take into account the aspect of this is your plan. This is your plan to your available funding and your administrative capacity. So you may not have the ability to implement certain recommendations at a certain time. Again, it should be reviewed and adjusted accordingly through the proper channels with the chief. The costs and that we've looked at are just, they're based on the order of magnitude and estimates that we were able to come up with. They're not exact costs, but they're kind of a ballpark cost on what you could expect to see throughout the plan. What we've done, next slide, is we've divided the recommendations for this slide purposes. I don't want to have to go through all 29 recommendations with you, but there's a number of strategical recommendations within this plan that I think are very important for council. They'll have either impacts to budget or council's involvement through approval stages. We've identified strategical recommendations, and then we've identified administrative recommendations. And it's those administrative recommendations that the fire chief could handle within his capability and aren't really necessarily need for council's input per se on those, stuff to do with the training, documentation, things like that. Happy to discuss those if council wishes, but I wanted to focus first on the strategic recommendations. So recommendation 1A looks at, the current establishing and regulating bylaw should be updated and revised to outline, your detailed core service levels that essentially provide for council direction that the fire department then can meet. So under that, council gets to set the level of service under the Fire Protection Prevention Act. And through that, we suggest that it be implemented into the bylaw. So if we move to recommendation 1B, which is tied to that, would be have the chief establish a standard to cover policy. And that standard to cover policy would be sort of that appendix to the bylaw that would allow for the types of incidents that the fire department should respond to, the level of service that they would provide to those types of incidents, the different levels of service that could be provided by each station, and then to address performance measurements. So how long do you anticipate that the fire department would take to get on scene in order to mitigate the situation, first truck on scene? Those would all become part of a standard to cover document that would become an appendices to your establishing and regulating bylaw. This allows council to set that level of service, provide clear direction to the fire department. I would suggest that your establishing and regulating bylaw is good in comparison to many that we see out there. We're just providing an opportunity to make it that much better. Recommendation number 3 is the next one. And this one, currently evenings and weekends, there's only one firefighter working alone. Some health and safety concerns can be identified with working alone for extended period of times. We've identified that a plan should be developed for a minimum of 2 firefighters to be staffed on duty 24/7. And when I say that 24/7, during the daytime, there's lots of other staff around that can work with that firefighter. But it's the nights and the weekends that were highlighted by us. We're not suggesting by any means that you need to double your staff. What we're suggesting is look at plans that will provide you an opportunity to fill those through utilizing part-time or volunteer corps on an as-need-be basis in order to staff up those timeframes. So what we're suggesting is allows for that flexibility and the chief to come back with a detailed plan on that. Recommendation number 12, next slide. No, other way. Oh, there we go. Back one.
Right.
There we go. The fire department should explore options for another fire department communications center to do the dispatching. Currently, dispatching is done with through the centralized ambulance communications center, and it allows for paging out of the incidents, but does not follow up the emergency from start to finish. Essentially, you get a page out, the firefighters respond, and then communications is then taken over by a staff member at fire headquarters, station 1 here. Communications is an integral part of the incident command structure, and exploring options with other fire specific dispatch centers could improve performance, allowing for the communication center to integrate into the command structure for West Nipissing Fire and Emergency Services. And it will also free up the admin assistant's time, who every time that call goes out, she runs over to the dispatch side of things, or at evenings or weekends will get paged out and come in and handle those incidents. We're not suggesting that there's anything critically wrong right now with your communications dispatching system through CAC, but there's an opportunity to improve efficiency and effectiveness by exploring with other fire communication centers out there. Recommendation 13B, training and development has become a very big topic across the province as it relates to fire departments, and the need to ensure that there's proper documentation and proper systems in place to ensure records management is maintained, as well as the delivery method for firefighters is an opportunity. Excuse me. So we're suggesting that right now everything's paper-based, and we're suggesting that the fire department explore a records management program that allows for proper tracking and analysis of the current and future training needs, and can utilize online training modules so to free up some staff time so that you don't have to have an individual in front of a group of firefighters. With the new technology that's out there, opportunity to do some online training will optimize people's time and optimize the opportunity to make sure firefighters are that much more prepared. Recommendation number 15. When we went around and looked at the fire stations, there are needs of renovations, some maintenance, and in some cases, some major renovations within some of the fire stations. And speaking with a number of staff members, fire is not currently officially involved in the building envelope studies for the municipality. And our recommendation is that the fire stations get included in this municipal building envelope study. Longer-term planning, this will assist in longer-term planning for capital projects, and a consistent approach to station maintenance should also improve through this process. Recommendation 18. Now, the next number of recommendations, we had an opportunity to look at all your response data, look at station by station, what type of calls you're responding to, look at the number of firefighters at each of the stations, and evaluate the risk within each of the station areas. So the following recommendations, the next 5, all deal with stations. So recommendation 18A, we recommend that you permanently close station number 3 and utilize station 2 for response coverage. When we look at station number 3 currently, it responds to less than one, over an average period of 5 years, responding to less than 1 call a year. There's currently only 2 or 3 firefighters that are allocated to that station. And there's not a large risk in terms of the call volume or the types of calls that were responded to there. Suggesting that station 3 can cover that area. In fact, currently it is already backing up. Sorry, station 2 could cover station 3's area. Yes, sir.
Which area is that station?
Station 3 is Tomico,
Tom Golding.
and 2 is Crystal Falls.
Okay. So with that, station 2 currently backs up station 3 already, and many times was first into those calls that we've identified. So little impact, by closing that fire station down and utilizing station 2 to do so. That would give you one less station having to maintain. Any apparatus that is there could be reallocated as need be, and any firefighters that are assigned there could easily be assigned to station 2. So you're not just getting rid of firefighters, you're able to reallocate those firefighters and still continue to utilize them. Recommendation 18B, we looked at station 9, and station 9 is
Cache Bay.
Cache Bay. Thank you. I want to make sure I get all the little communities right. Cache Bay. So station 9 responds to less than 4 calls annually, and currently Sturgeon, here, Sturgeon Falls area here, can get into Cache Bay area within a reasonable response time to cover that off. They're already providing backup support into that area. There's a lot of repair that's needed with Station 9 as well. That would be, again, another station requiring less maintenance. And any apparatus and firefighters could be reassigned to either Sturgeon Falls or one of the other stations where they're close by. Yes, sir.
Just quick, is that not our process right now? Like, there's nobody that goes to the Station 9 right now, correct? All Cache Bay firefighters are part of Station 1, correct? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. Right now, Station 1, Station 9 are combined.
Okay.
We still have Station 9,
The building itself.
the building itself, and the operation of that building.
Can we just hold the questions till after,
Oh,
like,
sure.
and then there'll be plenty of time to ask the questions when we finish with the presentation. Thank you.
Recommendation 18C. Here we're looking at you explore a fire protection agreement with French River to provide response coverage to Station 8. Station 8 is North Monedville. And what we're suggesting is the North Monedville station, Station 8, currently responds to 4 calls a year. There's about 8 firefighters assigned to that station. However, there are no officers currently in place there, which provides a supervisory concern. But before you close that station down, we recommend that you look to explore a fire protection agreement for those, 4 or 5 calls in that response area. Typically, we did look at having Levine Station come down and respond. What I would suggest is that the distance between Levine and Station 8 is about 25 kilometers, and the distance between French River and Station 8 is only 13 kilometers. So from a public safety standpoint, it would make much more sense for a response from French River. It's only after you reach a successful agreement, fire protection agreement with French River that we would recommend 18D, which is to permanently close Station 8. Again, those firefighters can be reallocated. Equipment and all that could be reallocated. And then if it becomes surplus, then you don't have to replace it down the road either. Recommendation 18E, we had an opportunity to look at both Station 6 in Levine and Station 6 in Verner and Station 7 in Levine. And both are stations that require some work, but also locations of the stations are tough. The one in Levine is right on a blind bend. So coming out of that station is quite dangerous from a response aspect. And the Verner station is lacking in parking spaces, which, when you're having volunteers respond in there, trying to find a parking space can be difficult. So we're recommending looking at the consolidation of the two stations into a centrally located area. There's an area that has been identified as a potential for a greater municipal use and with works and all that. And if we can combine fire with that works department concept in there, you can take advantages of the synergies of multi-use facilities and that, and then utilize one station, utilize the firefighters from both sides of Levine and Verner, and have them respond from the one station. This isn't one that we're recommending that you do quickly. It's got a 36 to 60 month kind of time frame in there so that you can do proper budgeting, exploration, what you're going to do with that, potential entire site, and then move forward that way. So, again, not a critical move to do that now with Verner and Levine, but something that has an opportunity to make your department that much more effective and efficient in the future. Recommendation 21. This one here could be combined with recommendation 13B that we talked about around the training records management system. But look at utilizing a purpose-built fire service record management system that supports all programs required by the fire service. So, and this recommendation came out of discussions with the chief when we were trying to gather proper incident response numbers and data for analysis purposes. We had a hard time getting that. In fact, the administrative assistant, she took the time to manually enter all the calls into a Excel spreadsheet for us and get it sent off to us, which is very time consuming. And it's, if the proper records management system is in place, it makes it that much easier for the chief to print off reports, can report back to council on current performance levels, current training levels. He can sit there and do strategic planning utilizing that type of program. It doesn't exist right now. Essentially, we'll make the fire department that much more effective. Those are the strategic issues. There are two that I just want to highlight quickly, and that's recommendation 6 and 7. And recommendation 6 talks about utilizing the community risk assessment. That's on slide 32, I think. Yeah, there we go. Utilizing the community risk assessment findings and new identified trends to formalize a public education program. Public education is a mandatory requirement under the FPPA. And utilizing the community risk assessment will allow the fire department to develop a very targeted community education program in a very formal structure. Recommendation number 7 talks about formalizing a proactive inspection program for fire code compliance. And what that would do is have, looking at identified risks within the community based on occupancy type or based on fire load, would allow the fire department to go in and seek compliance on a regular basis. Could be every 6 months, could be annually, could be every 2 years, depending on that risk. And then what that would do, as well as, within that program, allow you to continue to meet your legislative requirements through vulnerable occupancies on a regular basis and complaint and request inspections. I highlight 6 and 7 because we are not necessarily recommending right now that you need to hire additional fire prevention staff. But as these programs grow, there may become a capacity issue within your existing staff that may have the chief come back and say, in order to meet, recommendations 6 and 7, I now need to have an additional staff member in order to make sure that we're doing all the right things to make the community safe. So not recommending to hire a prevention person currently, but I highlight those that may become later in the future, depending on the capacity of the current staff. Madam Mayor, I know you have a very busy schedule ahead of you today. I don't want to get too much into the operational administration recommendations. Happy to do so if you wish, but that could be another half hour of me talking and maybe less opportunity for questions from council.
I'll put it to council. Would you prefer to move into a question period at this point, or? It is a lot of information, and I do thank you, obviously, Chief, the entire fire department, and you have worked very hard on all the different aspects of this plan over the last 10 months, and it really is a lot of information to digest. You've probably seen me scribbling furiously while you were speaking. Council, would you prefer, who would prefer to move on to questions?
Would you like to move into questions?
Yes?
And maybe we could have another session later on for the remaining of if you still have half an hour or something at another time. Would that be?
Council, yeah.
So to you, Mr. Chair, I think what Tim has touched upon are those aspects that are more strategic in nature. The other operational aspects, the chief will be handling them. But I think going forward on all of this, other than clarifying the information, I think we've spoken to that our mayor as well, is that we will be carving these out and bringing them individually so that council can manage them in chewable bites.
Okay.
And so we're going to be providing, room for discussion and fulsome debate and direction to the fire chief on what was presented, as well as an update on the operational.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, through you, we gave you the elephant, and now the opportunity is how do you eat that elephant in bite-sized pieces?
So I'm opening up the floor for questions or comments. Councilor Pellerin?
Thank you, Mr. Lagabé. Just the type of calls you say you're getting, like in the River Valley or Monetville or whatever, is it house fire, car fires, brush?
No, I have that here. Just pull that up. Fine.
Which,
59 and 70? If it doesn't, yeah.
Sorry, my screen is frozen. It's down on page 160, 163, 64. Station 8, right here. So what we saw incidents that included a couple of vehicle fires, 2 hydro pole fires, 1 brush fire, 1 MVC, 3 mutual aid, and only 1 structure fire in the
Station.
in the station 8 in the three years of data that we looked at.
So just one structure.
1 structure fire in the 3 years.
Might not be a house. My other question is, what's the difference between, let's say, this year or last year compared to 5-10 years ago with the amount of house fires? It seems to me we hear a lot less
So yeah.
houses.
Through you, Madam Chair. We didn't run numbers from 10 years ago to compare today in West Nipissing. What I can tell you from my experience, both as a fire chief for the last 22 years, but also as the deputy fire marshal for the province of Ontario, the evidence is showing that structure fires and the number of fires across the province are decreasing quite drastically. Early detection, public education programs have proven successful. But what we continue to see though is an increase in fire fatalities. They're down from what they were, 20 years ago, but they're still up over 100 across the province. Up over 100 people annually are dying in structure fires, and so we're seeing that, and we've seen an increase in the last 2 or 3 years to that. Fire numbers are down, fire fatalities have increased, which is alarming.
Any other comments, questions?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. My ward is Ward 8, and as you know, it's a very large ward. It's almost as large as the rest of West Nipissing, if you include the fact that my ward takes in a large part of Lake Nipissing and the West Arm, parts of French River. And in that ward, there's about, I estimate, probably upwards of 200 island properties. And I'm just wondering, in your risk analysis, I'm just wondering, did you look at the significant challenges that we have in protecting island properties in terms of
Well, we, through you, Mr. Chair, we did. We examined the whole aspect of what marine type emergencies cause. And when I say marine, I know the island isn't a true marine, but it still takes marine access to get there. And we've identified the fact that the fire department has marine capabilities. We've a number of the recommendations in the operational side of the plan talk about proper training for the marine units, to the appropriate staff, so that they can address those types of pieces. Secondarily, that's the response side. There's also needs to be a good public education program to properties such as that identified as a risk, to ensure that people understand their responsibility in preventing fires, but if a fire does occur, what to do so that they can safely get out. Properties can be replaced, people can't, and what we want to do is make sure people understand what to do in the event of emergency so that they can get out safely. Because a response to an island property is going to take time. Not only time for assembly of your firefighters at a station, but then the response to the shore, and then the response across the water to that building. So the likelihood of any type of save within those types of structures are going to be minimal, and the need for public education is much more greater for that type of fire.
Thank you.
I just have a follow-up question to Councillor Ferrans, and that is in regards to 911 mapping. I believe Councillor Ferrand in discussions that we've had identified some issues in actually having GPS locations for where access on island or water access properties is, and that is a bit of a barrier to response. So you can say it's island WS 1, 2, 3 or whatever. But if the emergency services don't know where the access point is, if it's on the northeast, if it's on the northwest, it can impact response times greatly. And so I just wanted to bring that up as a mention as far as the risks associated with those water access properties as a follow-up to Councillor Ferrer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other questions or comments?
Sorry, I do have my own questions and comments. First of all, my first question was, you have listed on slide 11, 12 registered vulnerable occupancies. Can you define vulnerable occupancies and what that means and what that is?
So the vulnerable occupancies are ones that are defined within the criteria under the Fire Protection Prevention Act. So the fire department has defined, typically you will see those as retirement homes, long-term care facilities, your hospital, things like that would require additional inspections and requirements within the codes.
I just wasn't sure what that was. I made a lot of notes during the presentation, and I don't want to take up too much time. I can see there's a large document looking to be about 300 pages there in front of Chief.
254.
That wasn't a bad guess, really, then. And I'm sure that a lot of the questions that I kind of had during the presentation are probably covered in that. Will that report be made available to council in its entirety? Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Borbo? Yes? Okay, that's great. And then I just have one other one that okay, oh, that was the other thing. I'd also, perhaps council would also be interested in seeing the current establishing and regulating bylaw, just because that's one of the recommendations, and that is on a policy level. So if that's a document that we could also have an opportunity to review, just so we have an idea what it is and what it talks about. Appreciate that, but I would save any other questions for Chief in future meetings after having the ability to review the document. Thank you.
I think that through you, Mr. Chair, that will probably be the baseline for starting the discussion, as it was in the first recommendation. And so we will be looking at that in terms of core service and that, because it really has never in my tenure been reviewed at this table. And so I think that that's a foundational piece that needs to come before you and discuss that at length. So like I say, it's the elephant that we're gonna take in small bites, but those small bites are gonna be a mouthful as well.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. And I might say we have a lot of work ahead of us. We're implementing the whole thing, so I would like to thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Chief.
If I may have just a little bit of latitude here, I just want to thank West Nipissing for taking that chance and developing a master plan. I can tell you that working with the chief has been a delight. Him and his staff are very professional in what they do. Very proud of the fire department in which they serve, and I would suggest that West Nipissing is in good hands with the fire department they have, and we provided you an opportunity to make it that much better. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much again, Mr. Beckett, for coming to present to us. Chief, I know that it's an interesting situation to put your department out there to be reviewed under such a great microscope. And I really appreciate you bringing this forward and taking the lead on this and pushing this to happen because, it's that discomfort and that gets us to make improvements that are necessary. So I really absolutely appreciate your initiative in bringing this to council.
I just want to recognize also Isaac Comandante and Tim. They were great as a team as well. And so I know he's there on screen, but appreciate your advice.
Okay, thank you again so much. That was.
I put it on mute.
No, you didn't.
Airplane mode.
Okay, I thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay. So that's all we had under emergency
Airplane mode.
measures with,
Now it's off. Oh, I had it on. I guess so.
okay, so that closes the emergency measures for this evening. We do move on to 5.2, which is our general government committee. And the first item on that is a draft bylaw to establish the administrative monetary penalties. For that, I will pass the floor to our CAO, Mr. Barbeau.
And I'll quickly punch it down the line to Elisa and/or Melanie and/or both.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the ball, Madam Chair. As this topic has been brought up a few times at the table, and Ms. Craddock has provided 2 or 3 memos providing council with information regarding the pros and cons. So before you is a draft bylaw which outlines the process for the administration of monetary penalties and in posting the bylaws. On Ms. Craddock's recommendation, we are proposing that property standards, traffic and parking, private entrances, outdoor burning, short-term rentals, and animal control be the first bylaws which we add to this. The way that administrative penalties are structured, you must designate in the bylaw which bylaws will be enforced under it. And as you can see, there's a schedule in the AMPS bylaw, which mirrors the, I'm going to say, the provincial offenses schedule, which is currently in the bylaw that we have. So that is what's before you. And I don't know if you want me to outline what's in the bylaw in terms of process. It's pretty dry. It would just give council, or would give persons, who don't agree with a penalty that's been imposed upon them, be it a parking ticket, a parking dog ticket, an opportunity for a hearing. Currently, those tickets, if you don't pay them, they go to the provincial court, and you might never hear from them again. We never know what happens after that. In this case, the hearing would be local, the enforcement would be local, and, we would know, through the process outlined in the bylaw, exactly how that matter is being dealt with, whether the charge is being upheld or whether it's been dismissed or whatever. In any event, as noted in the report, there is a bit of homework to be done regarding the implementation, and we are proposing that if council is considering the content of this bylaw, that we would move to implementation in the spring of 2025. There are things that we need to do, including amendments to all of the designated bylaws. We will have to create forms and applications, appeal requests, hearing notices, requests for screening. We will have to obtain the services of a hearing officer, and there will be staff training on the processes as well. So given this is a busy time of year, going into a budget and a bunch of other things, we believe that spring, perhaps April of 2025, we would be able to the full implementation. In the meantime, we would bring back the changes to the required bylaws a bit at a time so that we can when we get there. So I think that about covers what's in my report. And if there's any questions, that is where we're at. Administrative penalties.
Okay. I'll just note in your report, it actually said April 2026, so we,
Oh.
when there were, I know when I read it, another member coming, went, wow, that long, really? So you're
Typo,
looking at.
my apologies.
At this coming spring, so the next 6 months or so. Councillor Brevard?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I like everything that's in there, but I remember at last meeting, and I like how this will work. I remember at the last meeting, someone had mentioned, I think it was Councillor Farnham, about the illegal dumping as well. And I would really like to see that in there too, sooner than later. In a way, like I understand that we're just speaking on what's here right now, but
I think it has to do a little bit with finding a location or a property to send a bill to, right?
I'm not super familiar with that bylaw, but, or how its enforcement processes are. I just turn that to Ms. Craddock.
Yeah, we started with ones that were easy to administer, and part of that is easy to attach to a property. A littering bylaw is one that it is often difficult to actually even get a name, never mind a property connected with them. So absolutely, you know, I hope that once we have things established, that we kind of bring more bylaws under the AMPS program. But I wanted to start with things that were easy to attach to properties and easy to enforce right now.
thank you. Just to follow up, I would also think, like, even though if we can't, you know, find somebody, it's nice to have them kind of in place, because then it still may deter someone from going about. If they find out that there is a chance that they get caught and a fine go towards their home, it may deter them as well. So just some for future, if ever it comes up again, to add that one. Thank you.
Councillor Febe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, when we discussed this at the September meeting, I did say at the time that I wish that we could include more bylaws in the AMP system. I also think that littering should be in there. I'm thinking noise. Noise can certainly be, you know, we can identify which property is causing the noise. I don't understand why we can't start with more. I don't see that the amount of work for maybe 2, 3, or 4 additional bylaws will be that significant compared to the amount of work that we will have to do to put in place the system. So I still think that we should look at others to add in there right from the start.
Thank you very much. I will get back to that as a discussion point. Okay. Other questions or comments on that? Councillor Resto?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just for my understanding, this is to put this AMP system in place for these particular bylaws, but it doesn't create a void. Like, if it's not included here, it doesn't mean that the bylaws that exist don't get enforced. They just currently stay under the current system that exists right now.
That's correct.
Right? I was just thinking, it's new, and staff have put together a list of, we want to keep things manageable as well to get going. My understanding, my thought, let's get going, let's get a system in place, and as we get more accustomed to dealing with this and implementing this, we can add more in. But I just wanted to be clear that just because it's not here, it doesn't mean it's discarded. It's just still staying under the current system.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, I'm going through the information provided. Every table has penalties except for table 2. Did I miss something? Or, because if you look, like, for example, removal of a culvert or close or private, there's no penalties in that one.
I can, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I can clarify. Currently, the bylaw that we have for private entrances doesn't have any penalties attached to it, even POA. So we are going to go through and get some penalties established under the POA. So I didn't put anything in because we don't know what will be approved.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
That's one of those amendments we have to fix up.
Fantastic.
So would that mean that that specific bylaw would then come back to council to approve penalty, then you would do the application through the POA to have those penalties approved or amended. And then whatever's approved by POA would then go into the AMP program. Just so what I'm understanding the procedure and what comes next. with that.
Absolutely what you said.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay, so we did have comments from both Councillor Rivard and Councillor Ferrin in regards to amending the list of bylaws that are included in the initial rollout. The two that I heard mentioned were dumping/littering and the noise bylaw. Is there anything else that you'd like to throw on the table at this point? So I just looked to see whether there is agreement by council that they'd like to see those two items added into the initial rollout. So if I could get, are you asking a question? You're putting.
Yeah, through Madam Chair. Before I make my decision, I would like to know what kind of impact is that going to put on our staff? Is this going to delay the work that we have or that they've started already for a month, 2 months, 3 months? Or is this something that'll take a week or two to figure out? Because I mean, we want to push this forward, we want to get that. Not that I don't believe that the others don't require the same, what's the word I'm looking for, as the others, but I mean, if it's going to delay by too much, I think I need that information.
Madam Chair, it could delay, it will add work, it could delay. Certainly it isn't the intent to not include it, and certainly we can include it as soon as we can. I guess I'd reiterate the noise one is an excellent one because it is tied to a property. Littering is not as simple. So to Councillor Restoul's point, it might be just simpler where you absolutely know it could be attached to a property. It might be easier to start taking baby steps before. But certainly noise complaints are such that, that can happen. The issue also with noise complaints are they're handled after hours a lot. They're not usually our bylaw enforcement people that take care of noise complaints. It's usually policing that takes care of that. So there's a little bit of research that would have to be done, but certainly if council wants to provide an email with suggestions on others you'd like to see, we'll just provide a response back as to how we implement them smoothly and successfully. It isn't our intention. These are our suggestions so that we can kind of, hit the ground running, so to speak. But I would recommend that we can have a look at that and then come back to council with potential pitfalls or yes, that's a slam dunk. We'll just add it and whatever. So.
Yeah. Councillor Bonnier.
Yeah. So on the 6 items that were actually selected for the bylaws, I guess my question would be, would some of those be able to be like kind of dropped if there's more need to it? And I guess the need would be like our bylaw officers respond to X amount of calls. Which are the more frequent and which ones are tied to a property and which one can we actually use the app to actually find the people and recoup that money? That's kind of my question.
So those were the bylaws through, that we identified as being suitable for the AMPS program, I assume, right? So.
These 6?
Right.
So outdoor.
But there may be more. I'm certainly not. These were the ones that were slam dunks, and then the other ones we would have to have a look at. But yeah. Now, if your point is, with any bylaw, if your point is, once we set a bylaw, if there's adjustments down the line in terms of dropping one and adding another, that's certainly council's wish at any time, or council's prerogative, at any time. So.
Yeah. Councillor Bonnier.
Okay, just a follow-up question. Like the reason I'm asking the question is entrance permit an issue or is noise bylaw more of an issue with our bylaw officer? My suggestion would be to put noise bylaw, and if entrance permit isn't a big issue, just put entrance permits like on the back burner for the second phase of bylaw. Because I know if you put too much, it's gonna lengthen the amount of time that we put the AMPS program in place. So I'd rather see B&C rolled out with the most effective billing and response time by our bylaw officer.
Right.
So now they have the meat to actually be able to.
Right. So entrance permits are an easy one. They don't happen often and they're tied to a property. And so those are people who are putting an entrance or a culvert without a permit. So those are pretty obvious and we're going to be enforcing them 100% of the time because they affect public works ability and drainage and that kind of thing. With respect to noise, as I indicated, a lot of times noise bylaws are handled by the police and not by our bylaw enforcement officers. There have been occasions where you would have excessive noise with respect to, one was a pool machine or something like that, if we remember that one. Yes, and she winces, and so does he. You know, there's a few, but a lot of the noise stuff is after hour stuff, so.
Okay, thank you.
If I just may add, the one noise that we do deal with a lot is actually under animal control, and the barking dog is under animal control, and that's our noise complaint that we get. We don't get the other noise complaints. The noise complaint is barking dogs, and it's under the animal control. So it's already part of this, what's running here.
I just have ask a kind of process question. So what happens when the OPP responds to a noise complaint? So that noise is under our bylaw. But would they issue a provincial fine on our, like, so what happens? Like, where's the process complication there? If I could just understand.
So right now, typically what happens is that the OPP, if they respond to a noise complaint overnight, they're going as kind of a keep the peace kind of thing, right? Just guys, knock it off, don't make me come back. Because our bylaw officers work with our local policing agency, they will get a report on issues. If there's been an issue, our bylaw may go and follow up the following day with stuff, but generally the OPP go and it's just solve the problem, keep the peace between the neighbors. Everyone shuts down and there's not any charges laid on those cases.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Ferrer.
Thank you, Madam. It would be helpful then for a future meeting if the report could include maybe all the bylaws, most of the bylaws that could be subject to this. And you've obviously, I think you've done a lot of work already, and you've gone through it and done the analysis. So, well, this one's appropriate, this one's not. Could we see your reasoning and the other bylaws and why you came to the conclusion that it may not be appropriate for ants at the moment, or when it will be? So maybe some that will never be appropriate for it, and some that are, but maybe in phase 2. So we have a better picture of where we would be going with that.
Kind of a roadmap for long-term implementation.
Yeah.
Of it. So, you know, what the initial rollout looks like, what 6 months after looks like, what we might add. Is that kind of an understanding of what you'd asked for?
Absolutely.
Okay. I do still want to get, you know, is there appetite from council to have, I'll do it one at a time, the noise bylaw included in the initial rollout? 1, 2, 3, 4. I do noise, so I will vote on that for the noise bylaw. And then for dumping or littering, is there appetite by council to see that one? 3. Okay, so no on that. So if we could include the noise bylaw, it does, you know, again, it is tied to a property. I know the dog's barking, but I would ask for that amendment on.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
so can I ask one more question about
Yeah,
the
of course.
noise enforcement? If a neighbor is complaining about a noise problem 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and films his phone the noise, can that be used to then charge someone under the AM system?
I know.
Well, that's more of a question for a law enforcement person. I don't know that I have that kind of. Logically, it may make sense, it becomes evidence, but I think it's probably something we want to inquire of Councillor Fedin as to whether that's acceptable evidence. Everything we have to do has to be upheld in terms of a challenge, and so it makes sense to me, but you know, and how much do you want to spend defending it? I don't know, but we'll have to have a look.
Thank you. Councillor Rivard.
Thank you. Just something I noticed, like housekeeping, all of the tables, it says penalty. Penalty, so just to clean that up, final. And I'll look at myself as well there, so just another like beg to people who didn't register their dog or cat. I did, but $105 is pretty steep, eh? So I'd like to suggest
How much is
anyone
the
who
license?
hasn't done that. Pardon?
How much is the license?
$10.
Okay.
And it's worth it. Better than good. Just thought I'd throw that out there as a suggestion to anyone who hasn't done so yet.
Okay, other questions or comments before we close this item? Okay, thank you. So, you know, I think what's been put together is really good. I'm excited about seeing an initial rollout. You know, I know spring will come quickly and there's a lot of work ahead for both Ms. Craddock and Mr. Sherm in getting everything ready for this. And so I thank you in advance. I hope it's a great step to kind of towards modernization of our enforcement. And so the only change is that the noise bylaw.
No.
Okay, thank you so much. The next item, where are we now? So can we break early or do you want to? I think the term plan we'll go on to 5.2.2, which is our term plan update. And for that, I will pass the floor to our CAO, Mr. Barbeau.
Well, thank you. I think there was some discussion with respect to looking at the term plan, with respect to budgeting, and then there was some other discussion that I had with the mayor today and that we had last meeting with respect to requesting information or projects from individual councilors as it relates to the term plan, but as it relates to anything else that they would like to see costed out prior to deliberating the budget. So we did, I did impress upon the senior staff, and I can tell you that they impressed upon their staff to really try and push these things forward to try and get some information in the win columns. The major changes that I would note as well would be to try and put more firm dates on it so that it's more, you can actually see when things should be done by. Found in the first and the Q2 that it was kind of nebulous and just very vague. And so we're trying to find a little bit more detail with respect to that so that we can start checking some off and then having some good, honest discussions. I don't think it'll be tonight, but some good, honest discussions as to whether we would even be, like some were requested by council and were noted, but they may never get done. And so we need to, and some are just ongoing, they're just part of our job. So, so ongoing, it was separated from in progress because they're not really project-based. They're just, continue to network with agencies. Unless you want an operation, this is what I did on my summer vacation. And then this, that's just part of what we do. So we kind of divided that a little bit. So I think the document speaks for itself. And again, I spoke to our worship this morning to talk a little bit about, ensuring that, and I received something I believe today with respect to one counselor, and I've received a few from other counselors with respect to what we want to ensure is the cost and out for this budget. So it's not too late, and we have been passing it to the staff to get at least a high level costing to see whether that can fit or if that's a new priority for you as opposed to what was intended to be what was spent on. So I don't know if there's any more I can add.
Okay. Councillors, questions or comments on the update that's been provided to you? Councillor Restool?
For you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to say again, appreciate staff's work on this, and even just, and in addition to that, just there's a lot of stuff in here, and it all comes from discussions that we've had. You can see there's 8 pages of actions that we have here, and we're making our way through it, and it's nice to see. I like how it's really a quick glance kind of document where you can see the issue and where we're at. I appreciate the dates, and again, appreciate the CAO's work in getting a little bit more detail in here, not just, kind of a real 20,000 feet high view of this. But it's a great, I like it. I appreciate it. It shows where we're at, and especially going into, the next budget process, we can see where things are at and maybe see where we want to prioritize, because we may not get all this done likely because there's a lot of stuff here, but we see where we're at, we see what we've achieved so far and where we want to put a little bit more emphasis for the next budget. So appreciate the work that's gone into this, and it's a good looking document.
I appreciate the document. I think all governments and councillors will never get, we all deal with greater needs than the resources we have, and that's where prioritization comes into play. And so prioritization of financial resources and human resources as well, time to pull things off. So, larger municipalities might be able to pull off more with the resources they have, but we have to remind ourselves that what you see here is what you get.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I know it may sound like nitpicking or something, but I just looked through the list really quickly, and I noticed one thing that's checked off that in my opinion should probably remain open. Something should probably never be checked off on a term plan because it's ongoing. And the one that stuck out to me was the volunteer recruitment and retention, checked off as complete. When you're speaking about retention, I always think that that's an ongoing process on something that we can kind of,
Absolutely, that's probably in here.
There's something, because I think that there's always ways to enhance it and make things better. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
I actually, Councillor Donahue.
You want to go ahead, Madam Mayor?
I just had one question about one item, and that is the internet services in underserved rural areas. There is one item mentioned there, but I just wanted to follow up in regards to the calls we had early in the term with Cogeco in regards to their expansion plans and the maps we've seen of high-speed internet service, and whether or not there's been further follow-up or any other updates from Cogeco on the rollout of the broadband expansion that's being funded by the province.
So it was you and I who met with that. It should be no, but I will follow up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Donahue?
I will compete with Jamie, Councillor Ristol, just a great job on the things. There's a few specific items that I do have questions. I don't think this is the appropriate time to ask them. So when are we going to have actually meeting to discuss just the term plan? Or is that going to be part of budget deliberation? Going through the term plan, seeing what's been done, what's not been done?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just use an example for, let's say, phase 2 of environmental for the old mill site.
Mm-hmm.
I think in spring we approved that we phase 2, but I'm seeing here that it's the start date is December 2024. So I'm just wondering, I have a question, what's the delay? I'm sure, or is there no delay and we're just getting the RFP ready, or
and just pass that on to Director.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor. So this project's redeveloping industrial land. It's not something that's done in a quick manner. So we've gone through phase 1. The report was received. We had some discussion with the consultants, and now we're working with Colliers, which we've retained, in developing the scope of work for a phase 2 stage of the project. It's technical in nature. It's a lot more intense than phase 1. Phase 1 is just basically looking at historical data, and now we're into developing the scope, the RF or the tender related to that, and that should be released shortly. And then we're going to look at submissions coming in, award the contract, and then the engineering firm will be able to conduct their work. The one delay that wasn't, that we did go through for the phase one was tied directly to the Ministry of Environment. They lengthened the process of the phase one due to an FOI request that they had, and they took way longer than the 30 days to submit their full detailed report. Their report was well over 300 pages, and that incurred further delays for Englobe, our engineering firm, to then review and to incorporate in their phase one findings. So, and we have discussions with ongoing firms, and redevelopment of brownfield is a very slow process, unfortunately, but we're trying to move the file forward in an expeditious manner.
So I guess just my question, like all the details,
Yeah.
we're gonna do that at a budget meeting to align with our term plan, or like what, I'm just wondering what the plan is.
I would also like to see a fulsome review of the term plan where we go into more detail. We obviously, in our regular council meetings, I'll look to Mr. Barboa's recommendation on how that could be accomplished.
Through you, I really don't know. I'd have to think it out. My initial thought is that you have a report before you, and that what may assist is that if I give a little bit of homework, that will become a public document. Lay out your specific questions such as that we can encapsulate and have a fulsome report and then bring that back in some form, whether it be a special meeting, whether it be whatever. But if, to counterpunch individual questions, we can, as you indicate, can report all night. But I think that one of the things council, if I were a councillor, I don't plan on being one, but I would want to have that in writing as well. Some of the information that you're requesting, Councillor Gagne, is that if you can have those submissions responded to in a fulsome report, your specific questions, I think it would help you with your constituency going forward. So perhaps that would be the way to go, that if you read the report, you have specific questions, kindly send them to my attention, and we will then pass them along and get them back to you. Right now, we are full in budget mode, though, I can indicate to you, and some of these things that you see, as Councillor Restoul indicated, that you think affect the budget or how you would like to do. We've already taken that into consideration in the conditions, but there might be additional things, and that's why I asked for additional information from council to ensure that the department heads have all of your wishes taken into consideration, costed out, and then you can make a final decision as a whole as to what you see happening in 2025.
That's great advice. So what I would ask the council is that if you want to go through the report that's been provided here on update and going by the sections as they're identified, if you have questions that you'd like to see addressed in a future meeting about specific points within the term plan document, submit them. I will collate them and put them all together. And depending on what the volume is as far as information, Mr. Barbeau and I can determine whether it would require a special meeting or whether we can place it in discussion at a future council meeting, depending on the weight of that agenda. Mr. Barbeau did indicate that we will be receiving our invites for the beginning of our budget process within the next week or so, and we can expect the budget meetings to take us through the rest of November and into December. So it would probably be January before we would look at that kind of update. But the ones that have been earmarked for information for this year's budget will be presented during the budget period. Would that satisfy your question and help it move forward? Councillor Larrabee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the budget deliberation, you still do like one Saturday most of the day, and then the rest on
Okay. we're not talking about the
So,
budget right now,
yeah.
but,
Just to
we-
respond for the
yeah.
public record, we are going to kind of do, I hate these doodle polls, it just makes me embarrassed to say doodle. But we're going to do a poll to your availability. We'll be including Saturdays. If council does not wish to meet Saturdays, then that'll be council's decision.
Yeah, because we used to do one
Right.
full day and then the rest.
But this
Smaller.
council hasn't, so, you know,
Okay.
councilors have, kids who have hockey. This council, Councilor Larrabee is much younger.
okay, thank you so much. So, could I have the document that's within, the agenda just sent to me separately so that I can forward
Sure.
that and we can all work off that and then I'll share all the questions back.
The document in the agenda sent separately. Okay,
Yes, like just the term plan update.
okay,
Sure.
sure.
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, other questions or comments on the term plan update?
Could we add to that term plan?
And it would be a half term.
We can talk. So is council satisfied with that approach? Councilor Levine?
Just something positive, I noticed the Eugene Bridge replacement's not checked off. I saw today that it is, or so.
Check. Thank you. So does that process satisfy everybody where we'll bring it back to have a more fulsome discussion? Thank you so much. With that, we are a little past time. I will take a mover and a seconder for a brief recess. I move by Leslie Reed and Larry.
Moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. At approximately 8:07 PM, a motion is tabled for a 10-minute recess.
Okay, all in favor? Carrie, thank you. We'll be back in 10 minutes, everybody.
Staff.
Are we live? Sorry, yeah, we're ready. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are still in committee of the whole and general government at 5.2.3, recording of live streaming of committee meetings. This is an agenda request item placed by Councillor Gagne. So I will pass the floor to him.
Thank you,
Brief
Madam.
synopsis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So my agenda request tonight is to be able to review where we have other groups that are actually recording their session that we can review as either the public or even council members as a planning committie or a session. They're all recorded and it can be viewed. And I'm just wondering if there's an appetite by this council to actually have any other groups that are meeting to be able to record the session. That way, if I want to view a dev meeting that happened on such a date, I can go and I can actually have a look at it at my own time, not actually see it live, to be able, and for those groups, if it's possible. It would be interesting for myself. Sometimes I want to be up to speed if I do have questions regarding to different groups. So I'm just putting it out there to see if there's an appetite by councillors to actually try to see which group actually, for one, if they meet in this room, it's easy because the system is set up to be able to record the session. And if not, we'll need to look at maybe alternative solution for other groups that actually don't meet here to see if it's possible to do it. Like even at the DO Chateau, our sessions are not recorded, but they're open and they're live and anybody can actually dial in. You don't have to be present, but at least there is a possibility of time. So putting it out there to see if there is an appetite. And some councillors, you're chair of these different groups, so would be a change in your procedures, but at least we would have access to visually or to listen to those meetings. So kind of opening up to see if anybody has any questions, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, we'll open it up for questions or comments from our members of council. Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I completely support this motion to have every committee videotape because I did belong to quite a few committees in the past, and it's nice to be able to keep up with where they're at. So I strongly support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I really like this idea. The only hesitation I would have is youth advisory, because some of them, they're under 18, so we or to check with the members if that's okay. We can probably reassess them.
I'll just state as the other member of council on youth advisory committee, that was my also my hesitation on that. I think that there are privacy concerns for our youth members, several of which are high school students, and I'm not sure, not only on the privacy level, but on their comfort level as well of being recorded or being able to. So I would say outside of the youth advisory committee, I would support that. In addition to your list, I would add a couple others, which would be the Accessibility Advisory Committee, Cemetery Board, any municipal committee. We obviously don't have control of the outside organizations like Chateau, not-for-profit housing, but Councillor Restuel.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess he was chairing this part. Is it possible, and I don't want this to be into a big thing, but is it possible just to get a very quick snapshot list of who meets where, what the technology requirements might be? Because I think it's easy just to say, that'd be great. Practically, what do we need to do? Do we need equipment for these other facilities? And I don't know exactly what the staffing level is at all of these meetings. I know here we're well equipped because everybody's here, but at some of these smaller committees that might not be as robust a staff support. So is it possible just before we approve anything, just to get a sense of practically how much?
So there'd be a resolution, but we would have to come back with respect to certain ideas that way and make sure the technology in certain areas, but those that definitely meet. And then the other ones is if there's no reason why they don't meet here, perhaps they would come here and just change their venue. The other little caveat I would have with the boards is that they're autonomous and that you would need to have them consent. So they're municipal boards, but we wouldn't have the authority over environmental services, nor would we have authority over the library board or the police board. That would have to be their own consent to agree to it. So it'd be a request to do it.
Thank you, Councilor Robarts.
Maybe just to further Councilor Nicol and your comments, I think the rec and culture also, we're looking for 2 youth. So
Yes.
that would probably have to fall into the same, or we wouldn't do that one either.
I think parental consent is all that's necessary, but we can make sure and look into it.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? So to move forward, there would be a resolution that comes to council. Staff can look at if there are any specific boards or committees that pose any challenges like youth participation or environmental services or library, and come back to that. So I'd just like to make sure that we have council support to have staff bring this back to us with. So, yes, well, show of hands, thank you. Okay, so is that good enough for you, Mr. Barlow?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is one more item under general government, and that is in regards to our service request system. And again, agenda request item, would you like to speak to it first?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Gagnon.
So I know this might be a budgetary issue for the municipality, but I might as well bring it now since we are going into budget. I would like to see a response service from our service request. I'll be honest, even myself, when I submit a request, I don't know if it's been answered. I don't know if it's been resolved, and I'm not sure if there's a delay or it's being looked at. There's actually no details once you submit a service request. The only way I know if there's a pothole open, I need to drive there to see if that pothole was actually filled up, or the neighbor's gonna call me and say they filled up the pothole, so it's done. There's a street light that's burnt. I went through this before. There's no indication that says your street light has been fixed. So I think it would be nice, and there would be an added value for residents to actually get a response back to say, been looked at. It's not doable because of these reasons, or it will be looked at, or it's a budgetary issue, will be brought back to the council for a budgetary item. I think it would be a nice touch for residents. I know it's time consuming, but somebody still needs to document it. So if we can actually integrate it into a response system where you just reply back to the email address once there's a response or a delay or an explanation. I see this as a help desk system, and that's pretty much my request why I'd like to have it. I think it would be nice, but I know there might be budgetary issues and staffing also, so.
Okay, I'll have Mr. Barlow provide a response.
No, I'm just kidding. Levity. Absolutely. We are aware that, you know, with the feedback from the public and with council, that there are refinements. There is possibility to explore more of an automated system as well. There might be some adjustments to our CGIS system and some marrying that we can explore and get back to council. I know there was a request for the amount of calls and that kind of thing. We can bring you the entire report or share that. It was only provided today, and I think there's some high-level data, but I don't think it speaks to the issue that Councillor Gagne is speaking to. I know in Sudbury that the system that they have basically provides a follow-up on file closed at least, and then, you know, with a note. So the issue that we would have with a report to council is how can we do that with the human resources we have, or is there ways to automate that in such a way, or combine our database and convert it to a degree where it could be shareable. with the public in response, because our CGIS system does have the logging of the request and the responses from the staff that has taken place. It's just how do we convert that into publicizing that. So certainly we'll have a look at that and bring that back. If we can do it within our own system and convert some of our processes, we will. And if we have to look at investing in additional software to handle that item, then we'll be bringing that back to council. But either way, I don't know that it would be a budgetary issue, because I believe that we could have room, if council wishes, we would be bringing it back. But if there's a cost with our modernization fund, I don't think it's been completely utilized, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. It's not been completely utilized.
Right. So absolutely, we do understand that is an issue out in the community. So we'll look at addressing that, because we share council's concern that we don't want the perception that we're ignoring people and that our taxpayers are not being served. So if we can find that and close that loop, certainly we'll look at it.
Okay, Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Gagné for bringing this up, because I totally agree that we need a major revamp here, because to be honest, I really don't think our system is fit for purpose at all. As a councillor, I found in the first few months, in the few months that I've been here, my number one source of complaint is the service request system doesn't work, because people don't hear back. They don't get a response, and they don't know if something's going to be done or not. I found that when I use the cards that I was given to give people, is they laugh at me when I present the card, because they say, what's the point? They're not going to answer, or they're not going to do anything anyway. And we call, and nothing happens. So it is very much the perception at the moment, I think, amongst the public, that the system doesn't work and they're not being listened to. And I think we need to tell them when an issue is resolved, and we need to tell them if it's not going to be resolved, or if we won't resolve it for any reason. We need to give them the courtesy of a response. And at the moment, we're not, and I think it's a big failure on our part. I think we need to do something. There are systems in there that municipalities are using, not just municipalities, companies all over the world. Modern service request systems that track every movement, right down to the person, the employee of the municipality who goes out to fix the pothole. When the pothole is fixed, he's got an app on his phone, and instantly marks it as fixed. Instantly, the taxpayer gets an email back saying it's done. I know Kirkland Lake, Northern Ontario, they're not a huge municipality. They have an excellent system, apparently. So we need to go out there and see what other municipalities are doing, but we need to do it fast. I think it's sorely needed here.
Any other questions or comments on this? Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, through you. I have had some concerns similar to what Councillor Ferrari had, but then I've also had some very great experiences with it. I'm not saying that we don't need a revamp or some. I like the idea of that email back, very minimum for now. And also, in the meantime, until we were to get a big revamp of our system, I'd suggest something kind of like what I've been doing just to the rest of the council is I've instructed people to try and use that system and to get back to me, give it a week or two. Some people would call me the next day, it hasn't been done. I'd say, well, you're asking for a tree to be cut down on public property. I'm sorry, but this might take time. So I usually give a timeline about and I try and follow up with them in 2 weeks. I'd write myself a note. Contact hasn't been done. Very often they'd say yes. Sometimes they'd say no. And then I would, at that point, contact staff. And that's just something that we can do as well. I know it's cumbersome and a lot of time consuming, but just in the meantime, until we find something maybe that's more efficient, like, because I like the ideas that you brought up there with the app and more, it's following through the process a little bit more. Residents are being told what's happening as it's happening. They don't always need the communication either, in my opinion. Some of the stuff it becomes an operational issue, right? So it doesn't have to be like, we're going to go fill this pothole within this day and this day. We are working on the pothole and it will happen, right? But just something, an email would be nice. But I just like to say the system for me has worked in that method that I've been doing it. And I'd suggest in the meantime that that's something that maybe we can keep doing to try and help alleviate some of those residents' concerns.
Okay, I'll just close by saying, I've heard some of the same, concerns just as far as, residents getting the information back or understanding that it's being worked on. And I think that there is room for improvement. I'd like to see this discussed in kind of in more detail with maybe some options, whether or not, like, whether we can adjust the system we currently have or whether the best option is to move to a different type of system. I find it really interesting that there are some excellent software suites offered by different companies specifically aimed at municipalities. And there may be opportunities for efficiencies in other areas as well, whether it's public works or whatever. So it would not be a budget thing, but is it something that can come back to council with more detail on what some solutions may be to increase kind of resident satisfaction and resident engagement in the process?
Yeah, I think that's what I mentioned. We'll have a look. I think the only point I would make is that when you put in a service request, a statement that nothing gets done would probably be an absolute exception. Usually if there's a service request, action is taken. The manual issue with about 100 to 200 requests a month, in terms of follow-up. We don't have the human resources to do that. And so we provide a report back indicating that your request has been received. So that's the system now, but in order to close the loop, I am aware Kirkland Lake uses our software, so we'll have a look at what they do differently with CGIS than what we do. But yeah, we'll have a look at how that is, and if there's an investment. Some of what Councillor Fana indicates is that not all of our employees or technicians go out there with data or phones. And if council feels that that is a system that they want to adopt and we have the available funds for it and council approves the funds, then certainly. I think we all share the same goal of trying to minimize frustration, but I've been here a long time and I can tell you that negativity breeds negativity a little bit too. And that from our perspective, knowing the volume of calls and knowing what you receive, there is an issue that we need to address in terms of modernization. But I suggest to you that the vast majority of the service requests are dealt with. The loop that we don't have is getting back to the customer on absolutely every request because it's labor intensive. We don't have those resources.
What would be a reasonable timeline to see further information on the service request system come back to council?
Well, given that this probably wouldn't be a budgetary issue because there'd be modernization, and given that we are fully engaged now in budget, I'd probably suggest to you that it would be a winter kind of discussion. We're not able to just drop what we have right now and have a look at that. Not in November, going into budget right now, but certainly something around end of January, allowing us, assuming that our budget gets approved, then we can move on to other things.
Okay, and that would include information of volume of calls and like kind of how they're categorized, so whether it's bylaw, whether it's public works, whether it's this.
that
And like
report can
if
be
we could have
provided.
some data along with the system as far as like,
If you want to request for the data on our existing system, that can be done sooner
Okay.
because that is tracked.
Okay.
But in terms of solutions to
Solutions.
investigate, that would take a little longer.
okay. That'd be great. So, yeah, I'd just like to see the council is in favor of getting more information. Let's see how we can make things a little bit more responsive for our residents. Yes, yes, thank you. Okay, so we'll look for that near the end of January and with some solutions, and if that would include some of that data which is
Sure.
already available, it'll just give us a
Sure.
kind of a big overview.
And just
and
for
I-
council's awareness too, as you notice anytime you have a straw poll hand, we will work by resolution, and so next
Okay.
meeting will be a resolution directing staff to do that work.
Okay, perfect, thank you very much. Okay, and that is all for our committee of the whole this evening. We will move on to item number 6, a regular meeting, and 6.1, our consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the consent agenda for the Council and Committee of the whole meeting on November the 5th, 2024 be approved as presented.
Questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried, thank you. Okay, next item, planning, please.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-81, being a bylaw to accept and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of the west half of Lot 8, Concession 2, being Part 3, Plan 36R15272, and the east 38 acres of the west half of Lot 8, Concession 2, being Part 6, Plan 36R15272, the geographic township of McPherson, being part of the travel roads known as Chemin Lafrenière Road.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Whereas Council has received a discretionary grant request from L'École Élémentaire Catholique Christ Roi in River Valley, seeking a donation for their 50th anniversary of the operation of the school. Be it resolved that pursuant to Policy 2024-137, discretionary grant policy, Council hereby authorizes a donation towards the 50th anniversary celebration of L'École Élémentaire Catholique Christ Roi, scheduled for Sunday, November 17th in 2024 in River Valley.
Questions or comments? I don't know if that's sorry, did you have your hand up, Councilor Western?
Just a question.
Yes, thank you.
I'm just curious, and I think they mentioned this in the request that they don't have an identified amount that they're requesting.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, just reading this, I find it hard to approve because I don't know what, do you want $50 for sandwiches? Do you want $1,000 for what? Like, it's just
Was there a staff member who spoke with or worked with the school officials on this, like Ms. Craddock?
And they were just really, they're looking for anything that council might wish. So if council wants to say, yes, we're going to agree and make it $50, they'll gladly take $50. If it really is, they looking for if council wants to support them in any way.
It's open-ended for council.
So it's an open-ended question. How about I start with an unofficial who would be in favor of providing some kind of monetary support, and then we can work on an amount if that is the will of council.
I'm in agreement.
Councilor Pettit. We need to see hands. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there is not support at council to provide a monetary donation to a school. So the motion sits on the table. All in favor? Any amount? Okay, great. Okay, that's defeated. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Nichol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Whereas the municipality of West Nipissing has received private road winter maintenance agreements for certain roads within the municipality, and whereas the roads in question have been inspected and identified as meeting the municipality standard for winter maintenance, be it resolved that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign the 2024-2025 private road winter maintenance agreements with the residents of each of the following roads: Alfred Road, Argo Road, Hellerine Road, Point Road, Prangs Lane, and St. Jean Road.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification for council, these are all of the roads that have been included in the past. There are no new additions.
No new additions.
Thank you. Okay, questions or comments? All those in favor?
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Nichol. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-82, being a bylaw to amend Schedule F of bylaw 2019-60, regulating and controlling traffic and parking in the West Nipissing municipality, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Okay, questions, comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that the annual Seniors Christmas Supper be held on Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 at the Marcel Noel Hall.
Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrand, seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that the November 19th, 2024 council meeting be held at the Club d'Âge d'Or in the town field.
Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that council authorizes the temporary closure of the following streets for the West Nipissing Parade of Lights to be held on Friday, December the 6th, beginning at 6 p.m. Clark Street between John and Queen, John Street between Clark and Michaud, Michaud Street between John and Ethel, Ethel Street between Michaud and King, King between Ethel and Queen between King and Clark Streets. Be it further resolved that emergency services be duly notified of the temporary street closures.
Questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrand, seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality authorizes the execution of the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement with His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Solicitor General for the Community Safety and Policing Grant.
Questions or comments? Is there any comment by staff on that? Ms. Craddock, please.
It's actually just a housekeeping. So the grant exists right now, but the grant was originally provided in the name of the West Nipissing Police Service Board. And with the legislation change and the renaming of the boards and how they are dealing with OPP boards, it now needs to just be re-signed under the municipality.
Okay, so the municipality receives the money to help pay for the OPP policing costs, is it?
They have a project in place. I think they're in their final year of the community safety, which is the crisis response team.
Okay.
It's the funding for the crisis response team.
So we receive it and then we pass it through to the OPP. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that certain public works equipment described as PW46, being a 2004 plow truck, be declared surplus for the municipality of West Nipissing, and council authorizes the disposal of the surplus equipment.
Questions or comments? Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you, Madam. Just wondering, are all those items go up for bids?
So the surplusing,
Right.
this would be surplus, and we would be salvaging the dump body because it's compatible with our other trucks. The rest of the truck would be going to scrap. It's no longer, it's not worth anything. It's no longer running, so it wouldn't be put up for.
I was reading like something with the wing and the plow.
Oh, the plow. Yeah, we do have interest from Pioneer purchasing the plow.
Okay, I was just wondering, usually it goes out by tender, but
I don't know that we typically put our scrap parts out for tender, but if we have, so we, in this case, we have Pioneer who's interested because they're going to be maintaining Highway 805. So they've approached us about purchase, and that's why we'd be looking at that.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Larrabee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in agreement with this definitely because if it could help them out and it's helping the community at the same time, because this D805 is very, very important road for the economic development of West Nipissing. So a lot of people from Sturgeon Falls and all surrounding area are using it. So I'm definitely in favor of helping them out. Thank you.
No other questions or comments? There's a resolution on the floor. All those in favor? It's carried. We'll move on to item number 8.1, which is the addendum, which is the bylaw to amend Schedule D of the traffic and parking bylaw to add stop signs at the intersections of Main and Queen and Main and William Street.
It is moved by Councillor Feta and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-84, being a bylaw to amend Schedule D of bylaw 2019-60, regulating and controlling traffic and parking in the West Nipissing municipality, shall come into force and take effect on the date it is passed.
Thank you. Mr. Courtney, did you
No, I believe there was a report with respect to, typically we work with warrants and standards that are part of policy manuals, provincial warrants and standards, and we go by that. And so I understand, that the public may have liked the temporary stop signs. Our position at staff is that it doesn't meet the standards. And so typically, it is a council decision whether they feel that they're needed. I certainly wouldn't want to speak for council. We just speak for what the appropriate operational policies are typically with respect to stop signs. There may be other factors that council considers though, but one of the things I would, make a statement on is, certainly when we look at the standards and, council wants to question whether those standards are appropriate for the location, that's fine. I would be concerned about overriding, a complaint system or just a lot of complaints by people, being a determining factor without having solid traffic standards as well. So the mayor and I had a discussion this morning, and she obviously has some questions with respect to the standards and how they relate to Main Street. I think that's valid in terms of public policy, but I just would say that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Open the floor to questions or comments. Councilor Pellerin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am in favor of those stop signs to stay. I know for a municipality, it's not legal to put a stop sign to limit the speed, but it is legal for a safety standard point. And I go through that intersection, and it is a safety concern. It's to me, it should have been done a long time ago. So I'm in favor of that, 100%.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments? Councilor Rivard.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I just, I took the time to speak to quite a few of the businesses and residents who go around the downtown core quite a bit. And there may have been 2 out of, I'd say, almost 100 people I asked who said that they didn't want the stop signs. At first I was, as you remember at the meeting, I was actually not for it either, because I also think that some of our areas have stop signs that maybe shouldn't. Dovercourt Road or other roads there that I think of. But that's beyond the fact. But in this area now, after they've been there and driving, And also what my wife says is that she feels safer when she crosses. A few people have mentioned that to me, and quite frankly, I feel safer as well when I'm trying to cross Queen or William, cross Main on Queen or William. So I'm in favor of keeping them now, and it's okay to change your mind at some point, right? Once it's done as a test trial, so thanks. That's my opinion.
Councillor Larrabee?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would have a question. When we did introduce the second four-way stop on King, there was a study that was going on while we just after we introduced those four-way stop, is if it's going to impede on the traffic from the streetlights from Front Street going in. Now, is there a similar situation that those stop signs could do? Is there a safety issue by keeping them there?
Well, I think the only safety issues with keeping them there, because the traffic counts on these streets are quite a bit lower than on King, which is why they're not warranted there. So, I mean, your only safety issues are, that it's just overuse of stop signs and driver complacency. So you get into those issues, and the OPP has recommended against the four-way stops here as well. So that's what's in my memo about the safety concerns. That still stands, but if council would like to keep these, then that's up to you.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, it was kind of sort of what Councillor Larrabee mentioned, and Ms. Henning sort of responded to it. My question was, how much more traffic is there really on King compared to Main when you're basically looking at the same two streets with the same downtown core? And I understand one has probably the two banks. However, the other two are basically banks called chip stands that have as much traffic, if not more, in the summertime. So, I mean, if it's there and the data is there that there's a lot more on King, then that's what I was gonna ask. But my opinion is, if we have it on King, what's the big difference of having it on Main also, right?
To answer your question about the traffic counts, we actually have double the amount of traffic on King that we do on Main based on the traffic lights counts. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Gagné?
I'm in favor of keeping the stop signs, and mainly, I know the traffic count isn't there yet, but I think that once we hit Champlain Bridge and start in the construction of that bridge, we're gonna see a lot more traffic going back in the downtown core area. And possibly a lot of traffic will be rerouted and going towards John Street. So because of that reason, for future needs also, I would recommend that we keep the stop signs permanently on Main. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just close by saying I'm also in favor. I think that traffic counts and the OPP data are one thing, but I think that there are also there's considerable pedestrian traffic there, and I think all of us agree that the sightlines are challenging because of significant on-street parking. And I'd also just like to note that the West Nipissing Family Health Team has recently relocated their offices to the corner of William and Main. Sorry, I had to get my streets straight there. William and Main, and with their patient counts, I would expect to see more on-street parking because the building they've located in, I don't think has adequate parking for what their needs are. And a lot more kind of pedestrian traffic and traffic that may have needs. And I've enjoyed having the signs there on a personal level. So with that, if there's no other questions or comments, there is a resolution on the floor and I put it to a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Okay, just do a brief mayor's report. This coming weekend, we will be recognizing Veterans Week, Remembrance Day, and I'd just like to acknowledge the ceremonies that so far I've been made aware of. If there are some in communities that I am not aware of, I apologize. Field is Friday at 10:30. 11 o'clock at the Chevalier de Colombe Hall, which is in the basement of the Church and Field. Friday also has Werner, which is starting at St. Marguerite d'Youville at 10:45, I believe.
Not sure, I know it's at 11 at the.
At the Cenotaph, okay.
Yeah.
And to be followed by a luncheon at the Club d'Amitié. On Saturday, the Cache Bay will be holding their ceremony at the Cenotaph, which is located just adjacent to the fire hall on Waterfront Street. Yes. I'm looking to counselors to help me with these ones. And then on Monday, the large ceremony at the Sturgeon Falls Cenotaph, as well as Kipling will be having their ceremony on Monday, November 11th as well. I'd like to acknowledge the group of volunteers that put together the poppies for the bridge, which look fantastic. And I encourage all residents to take a moment and reflect on the sacrifices made by those who served our country in uniform, past and present. Thank you. With that, we have a resolution to go into closed session.
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that we proceed into closed meeting as authorized in Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, and labor relations and employee negotiations.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Ms. Benning.